How much brain power do we actually use? Is it possible that humans are just one pill away from unleashing their true intellectual potential? Well, that's the topic of today's video. If you're anything like me, you hate having to learn facts. I mean, who cares about memorizing the Krebs cycle or memorizing who the different kings and queens of England are? We all have a phone, so we can find out the answer to all these questions in a matter of seconds. But for some reason, that's just how society functions. Yet again, if you're anything like me, you've probably wondered, why is it so difficult for me to learn this stuff? Or maybe it's not entirely your fault. Enter psychologist William James. Back in about 1908, William James wrote this paper, hypothesizing that humans only used about 10% of their brain power. Hollywood and famous figures like Albert Einstein propagated this theory to a point now where a big chunk of society actually believe this to be true. But how true actually is this idea? Well, obviously it's entirely untrue. The cerebellum, the area of the brain responsible for balance, motor control and coordination, makes up 10% of the brain volume all by itself. So obviously at any given time we are using a lot more than just 10% of our brain. But wait, all is not lost. I myself have tried multiple times to learn different languages, namely French and Italian, languages which my mother speaks fluently. And after every failed attempt, I always end up saying the same thing, which is, why didn't my mum just speak to me in French and Italian as a baby? Then I'd be able to speak these languages fluently. And boom. The idea came into my head. Why is it that humans go from being able to literally learn a language fluently just by hearing words over a period of a few months to, as an adult, just not being able to learn a language without literally having to go and memorize words and phrases? In order to understand this, we need to go back to basics. What is learning? Well, let's say for an example that you have just learned for the first time the chemical structure of a nucleotide. When you do this, your brain starts to develop new neural pathways between neurons. These pathways can be strengthened or weakened depending on how often the information you've just learned is used. So what does this have to do with the ability for babies and adults to learn a language? Enter the neurotransmitter GABA. GABA is an inhibitory chemical released in the brain to effectively prevent the brain from overheating. It calms everything down, and hence it's incredibly important for when we're learning information. A study done comparing the levels of GABA in adults to children found that on the whole, adults have more GABA in their system than children. This is why children are more impulsive and just act out. But then the scientists found out something very interesting. The scientists started to measure concentrations of GABA instead of just pure volume. And what they found is that levels of GABA in children found before learning something were considerably low. But then after learning the fact, the scientists remeasured the concentration of GABA and found that it had skyrocketed. This compared to adults where there's just a constant baseline of GABA present in the brain throughout the learning process. So essentially, when an adult learns something, all these new neural pathways start to form. But let's just say an adult goes from learning one new phrase in French to learning another. Your brain relies on releasing GABA to prevent burnout. And the way that the brain does this is by removing the old information and basically overrunning those new neural pathways with the new phrase which you've just learned. But in children, because of the rapid rises in GABA, their ability to consolidate information and quickly move on to something else is greatly enhanced. The study concluded by stating that a new therapy could be developed on how to increase GABA concentrations in humans during a learning process. So instead of the nootropic NZT48 from the film Limitless, maybe GABA is our secret formula to unlocking our true intellectual potential. Let's hope so. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Tomorrow night, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, gonna suck it to you tomorrow, baby.
I move your picture.
I move your picture
From my wall.